All right, welcome to Shortcut Day. Most of you are going to like kind of what we're doing. Instead of having to use the number line, instead of having to go through all those steps, today we're going to be talking about a shortcut to adding and subtracting integers when we're dealing with negative numbers. You still can't use your calculator. That's too much of a shortcut. But this is a kind of an in-between for you, just to give you some alternatives, some other ways to do it that might be a little bit easier for you. So that's all we're dealing with today, is we're going to be, we've got a couple examples here. We'll go through them. We'll do some problems together. Our first one is 25 plus a negative 29. And then we've got negative 13 minus 8. And I'm going to show you how to do both these problems. So the first step in our shortcut is that we still got to get rid of the double signs. We still don't like this plus negative right next to each other. So step one is to remove any double signs. All right, so in this problem, 25 plus negative 29, we've got a double sign right here, the plus minus, and we get rid of that by rewriting it 25 minus 29. And then my negative 13 minus 8, I don't have a double sign. Yes, there's two negatives, but there's a number in between, so we can't count that. So we get rid of our double signs. If you don't remember how to do it, go back, refresh your video from yesterday, look at your notes, that'll help you out. Step two, once we only have one sign next to each number, we are going to circle each number and the sign in front of it. So we're going to circle each number and the sign in front of it. So I'm going to rewrite these, 25 minus 29 and negative 13 minus 18. And I want to circle the number and the sign in front of it. So I'm going to circle the 25. Now there's not a sign in front of this. And one thing I want you to remember is if there's not a sign in front, and I put a little note here, if there's not a sign in front, we know that the number is positive. So we can treat it like there is a plus in front because we know it's a positive number. And then I've got to circle the 29, but I've got to circle the sign in front of it. So that minus sign is in front of the 29, so I'm going to circle it together. And then in the second problem, I've got negative 13, so I'm going to circle the number and the sign, and then I've got minus 18. So I'm not just circling the 18, I'm circling the minus that's in front of it. Okay, so that's step two. Step three, if the signs are the same, okay, if the signs are the same, meaning if you have a negative for both signs, or if you have a positive for one and a positive for the other. If both of the signs are the same, you're going to add the numbers together and you're going to keep the same sign. Okay? So if I look at these problems, 25 minus 29, this one is a positive, this is a negative. The signs are not the same, so this doesn't work. But in this problem, negative 13, negative 18, the signs are the same, they're both negatives. So I'm going to add those two numbers together. 13 plus 18 is 31. But I need to remember to keep the sign. It's a negative 13 and a negative 18. So my answer is actually negative 31. And I'm done with that example. Okay, so if the signs are the same, add the numbers, keep the sign. All right? Now, if the signs are different, if they're different, I want you to look at a couple of things. The first thing I want you to look at is which do you have more of, positives or negatives? Okay, and then you're going to write the sign that you have more of. So 25 positive and 29 negatives. So which one do I have more of? Do I have more positives or more negatives? I think it's pretty easy to tell that 29 is more than 25. So we have more negatives, which means my answer is going to be a negative number. Okay, so I write negative. I've got more negatives, so I'm going to write a negative sign. And then my second question is, how many more negatives do I have? And I'm going to write the number that answers that question. So I've got 29 negatives, 25 positives. I know I've got more negative numbers. how many more do I have? Well, 29 is 4 more than 25. So I have 4 more, and then I just write that answer. So my answer is -4. 25 minus 29 is just -4. Okay, so that's one of the shortcuts that we'll talk about this year. We're going to do a couple of those together, but just a few things that you need to remember along the way. Get rid of the double signs, circle each number and the sign in front of it. If they're the same, add them together, keep the sign. If they're different, which one is bigger and how much bigger, and that'll be your answer. All right. One other thing to keep in mind as we're doing this is this only works when we're only adding and subtracting. Okay. If you have a problem that says something like 3 divided by 7 plus 4 minus 2, we can't do any of this yet because we've got division in there still. Okay, so we can't do any of these things until we're only left with addition and subtraction. All right, so let's do these problems really quick. We'll keep the video short. -5 plus -17. I've got my double sign issue right here, and I want to get rid of it. So that becomes -5 minus 17. And I'm going to circle the numbers and the signs in front of them. Both of the signs are negative. I got -5 and -17, so I get to add them together. 5 plus 17 is 22, but they were negatives, so I put a negative in front. My answer is -22. No number line, just short and simple. Part B, 22 plus a -29. Again, I've got this double sign right here, and I want to get rid of that. So 22 minus 29. And I'm going to circle the numbers and the signs in front. Now there's not a sign in front of this 22, so I know it's a positive 22, and I've got a -29, which means I have more negatives than positives, and I've got 7 more negatives because 29 is 7 bigger than 22. So I've got more negatives, and I have 7 more negatives. So my answer is -7. All right, part C, no double signs, -13 plus 7. So I'm just going to circle the -13, and I'm going to circle the +7. So I've got 13 negatives, I've got 7 positives. My signs are different, so I've got to use step 4 right here. 13 negatives, 7 positives, I definitely have more negatives. So my answer is going to be a negative, and I actually have 6 more because 13 is 6 bigger than 7. So my answer is -6. All right. If you're having a hard time figuring out which one, well, I don't think it's hard to tell which one you have more of, but if you're struggling figuring out which one has how much more it has, just subtract the numbers. To figure out how much more there is in 13 than 7, I just did 13 minus 7 in my head really quick. To figure out how many more negatives I had than positives, I just did 29 minus 22, which was 7. This one, the signs were the same, so we added them together. We didn't have to figure that out at all. So there's your quick shortcut for the day. I want you to pause the video. I want you to try these 3 problems on your own. When you think you have the right answer, come up and see me. If things look good, I will give you the practice, and good luck.